The idea, as we have often said, is that when you form an incarnation, when you form a personality, an ego structure, in order to experience physical reality, it is generally composed of definitions, beliefs, of emotions, of thought patterns, behaviors that comprise what you think of yourself as the physical person, the physical identity that you have. Those definitions are the blueprint level that determines what it is you are capable of experiencing physical reality to be. So beliefs, by their nature, by design, have to contain the ability, have to contain the resonance and the frequencies to get you to buy into them strongly, or you can't really have the focus necessary to believe what it is they're telling you and have a physical experience that is representative of that specific particular belief. So all beliefs will make themselves seem to be, in some ways, the only belief at that moment that it is possible to have. Now, being that you have both positive and negative beliefs, when you have the positive belief, in your mind, it's not really such a big deal that it is convincing you, or doesn't really need to convince you, of the good times you're having, of the good feelings that you're experiencing. But because really, truly, deep down, and also in your higher mind, so to speak, you really know the truth, that you really are infinite, eternal, indestructible beings who are absolutely worthy of the unconditional love and support of creation, because you really do know that in your heart of hearts, negative beliefs have to work very, very hard and very, very specifically in order to allow you to buy into the willing suspension of disbelief about that truth, in order for you to experience the concept of polarity. It's actually very, very difficult innately to buy into something negative about your true being. So, negative beliefs have to rely on a series of tricks and tools. They have to specifically target certain ideas and experiences within you and magnify, amplify, get you to focus on them in a very specific way in order for you to actually even let go of the notion that you are this worthy being and actually convince you that you're not worthy, convince you that life is a struggle, convince you that things aren't easy, because you know deep down they actually are. You know deep down in your natural self that things are very simple. And so, in order to experience the idea of polarity, in order to experience the idea of physical reality as an experience where you go through a process of forgetting who you are in order to remember who you are from a new point of view so you can expand your understanding of yourself, you make yourself, shall we say, available to all of the different ideas and negative beliefs that can exist within the realm of forgetfulness. Thus, working through those negative beliefs, transforming those negative beliefs into positive ones, transforming darkness into light, transforming limitation into freedom is the entire point. And so you will usually start with some form of negative belief that is representative of the theme you chose to explore in this life, that will raise its head in all the challenges that crop up that are representative of that theme in your life. But again, because a large part of being able to rediscover yourself from a new point of view is the fact that you have imposed forgetfulness upon yourself as a way of being able to do that, then the negative beliefs can seem from time to time to be very, very strong, very powerful, very profound. Now, of course, they are only deriving their power from you, but they are giving you the opportunity to explore the kind of scenarios that as an unlimited being you otherwise would not really be capable of exploring. Nevertheless, now that you are really approaching the end of the cycle of negativity and going more into the cycle of positive awareness, awakening, expansion of consciousness, now is the time to begin to truly remember that all the negative beliefs that you may have been dealing with and some of the ones you may continue to deal with for a little while longer in your life are really, really just ideas, in a sense, really smoke and mirrors, and that they really have to work very, very hard and focus very, very strongly on very specific issues within you in order to get you to buy into the idea that you are not worthy, in order to get you to buy into the idea that you should not investigate them, because they are, by again design, attempting to perpetuate themselves, attempting to reinforce themselves, attempting to make it seem as if they are the only reality that's possible. And when that idea comes from the negative side, they have many, many, many tools and tricks at their disposal to get you to buy into that scenario. Let us begin to examine some of those tools and tricks and expand upon them a little bit further so that you can really lock into this idea.
Convince you no other belief is as real.
All right, so we have touched on this a little bit. One of the first things that a negative belief must do to get you to stop looking elsewhere for an idea is convince you that they are really representative of reality and everything else is a fantasy.
Convince you no other belief is possible.
If, when they attempt to convince you that only they are real, and yet you still might have enough self-empowerment to go looking elsewhere and extract yourself from that belief, they will, as I said, amp up the power, magnify the power, and attempt to convince you that no other belief is possible.
Convince you positive beliefs are negative.
This is a very sneaky one. Because again, what they will do to convince you to stay exactly where they want you is they will color and filter an idea that might be representative of your truth, of your excitement, and make it appear to be something that is not, in fact, may make it appear to be something quite scary that you would want to stay away from. That's another trick they have to keep you exactly where they want you.
Convince you negative beliefs are positive.
This is the other side of the coin. Not only do they have to convince you that the positive beliefs are negative, but they have to convince you that they have your best interests at heart so that you will seek them out anytime you encounter a true positive reality that they have convinced you is scary. They will then also augment that with, oh, there, come here. I understand you. You're safe over here. I'll protect you from that big, bad, positive belief. Making themselves appear to be the hero to which you will gravitate.
Convince you to take negative things personally.
Many times the idea is that when you see other people who are going through negative issues, dealing with negative issues, you will understand that people who are afraid to dive deep in themselves and explore those issues will often project their own issues on other people, such as yourself. And if you don't have the wherewithal to neutralize the idea and recognize the difference between something that is actually your issue and something that is their issue, the negative belief may in fact convince you that what they're telling you about you is actually true, when in fact all they're actually doing is talking about themselves. Many people will resent being shown an example of what they believe they have failed at if they see someone succeeding at things they believe they cannot attain, and will project that resentment on others in the form of blaming others or saying others have the very negative traits that they themselves actually have but are in denial about within themselves because they're afraid to look at it based on what their negative beliefs have told them they should not do. You should not look at this. So the idea of neutralizing this is to remember not to take things personally. It's always wise to listen to someone and see if their advice can be used as advice or their perspective might be representative of something you need to look at. But if you realize that it is simply their issue, then the negative belief will do everything in its power to keep you in the negativity by convincing you that what they're telling you about you, that is a negative idea, is actually true. You have to learn to tell the difference between your issues and theirs.
Convince you to blame others for your negative experience.
Yes, again, this is the other side of that coin from the person that's doing the blaming and the accusing and the projecting, is again, the negative belief will keep you in denial about the fact that you are dealing with that negative belief because it makes itself seem to be very scary, and therefore you can't look at that because it'll get even scarier. It'll get bigger and growl at you if you come close. So in order to preserve yourself, it activates the idea of your survival mechanism and says, this isn't about you. It must be caused by someone else. So blame someone else, project someone else for the things you are scared about and fearful about within yourself so that you don't have to look at it. You can just foist it off on someone else and then it isn't your problem anymore.
Convince you that you will suffer if you change your belief.
Oh yes, this is a good one. The idea of the tortures of the damned, allowing you to know that you are safe where you are, and this is another way of painting a positive reality in an extremely negative light by saying, look, even though you may not really be absolutely happy, you are comfortable and safe. And if you change from where you are, no matter how negative you may realize it is, I'm convincing you that where you think you want to go is going to be so much more difficult, so much scarier, that you really want to stay with what is familiar, because you are going to really suffer if you really try for that thing that you really prefer. And in fact, you may even fail at it, which would make you even more miserable. So why not just stay here where it's comfortable and safe, in my clutches?
Convince you you'll feel less lonely if others reinforce the negative belief.
This again is the idea of misery loves company. If you feel that you are in the idea of a negative state, a misery state, but you want to feel the idea that you are not alone so that you don't have to feel this by yourself, then you will invite in others who are just as miserable, and you will invite them to make you even more miserable, and you them, so that you can stay in a state that seems to be the common state, and thus, since everyone's doing it, I don't need to change. That's the idea. Look, everyone's doing it. Why do you need to be different? We're all miserable. Just stay that way.
Convince you it's too difficult to change.
Again, this goes hand in hand with some of the things we have already said, but this can be done in a variety of ways. And again, they will pinpoint within you beliefs that you may already have bought into, and they will amplify and magnify those specific things that you've already found to be difficult and make them seem even more difficult if you go in a different direction.
Convince you that it's impossible to change.
Again, same idea. It is simply against the laws of nature. You are what you are who you are. Don't rock the boat. There's nothing you can do about it.
Convince you to impart negative meaning to all situations.
Of course, because if you suddenly realize that everything is actually neutral and you can actually choose the meaning and get the effect based on the meaning, well, then the negative belief has lost its hold on you because suddenly you've neutralized it and it's just like any other belief. So it will again convince you that the only realistic thing to do is to impart negative meaning to every situation that looks in any way, shape, or form like anything you have ever been taught should be defined as negative, and not even allow you the chance to think that it could be defined in any other way. This is what everyone says this means. Why, again, go against the grain? You know that this is a bad thing. Everyone says this is a bad thing. So obviously it must actually be a bad thing. So please don't try to redefine it, because then you will just look silly. You will look like you are pie-in-the-sky fantasy. Everyone knows what the reality actually is.
Convince you to feel powerless to change by diminishing ability.
Again, if you allow yourself to be in the grip long enough of certain negative beliefs, they will actually make you feel that your energy is being drained away anytime you move in the direction of something that might be positive, to convince you that really you don't have the ability to do this. They will give you tiredness in a sense. They will make you feel like it's just not worth it. They will make you feel like this is going to be a real struggle, a real effort. They will make you actually feel weaker in a sense, because they give you more power by staying in the negative side, and they take that energy away when you move toward the positive side. It's not that you actually are weaker, it's just that by comparison they make it appear as if you're weaker because they infuse you with so much power when you come back in their direction.
Convince you to feel helpless to change by amplifying fear.
And again, they will prey upon the idea of any other negative belief that might generate the actual experience of fear, and they will pump power and energy into that fear to amplify it so much that you become so terrified, so frozen with terror about moving in the positive direction that you simply can do nothing about it. Or at least make it seem as if that's the case.
Convince you it's in your best interest to imagine the worst outcome.
Again, this goes hand in hand with the concept that you are being more realistic if you always imagine the worst. Because again, otherwise it reinforces the idea that if you don't look at life that way, people will think that you're some kind of Pollyanna, that you're not realistic, that you don't have your feet planted firmly on the ground, that you can't be trusted with things because you have a flighty imagination, so on and so forth, that you just live in a fantasy world. So by imagining the worst first, people will see you as, oh yes, the very realistic assessment, because that's the way everyone knows the world is, and then you'll be taken seriously. But again, that's the trap. Because everyone would like to be taken seriously, negative beliefs will equate the idea of being taken seriously with the idea of projecting always the worst case scenario for yourself, and pretty soon that becomes your habit.
Convince you that they have your best interests at heart.
Absolutely, as we've already touched on, the idea that, look, I'm taking care of you here. I'm not going to let harm come to you. I know that's a big bad world out there, and if you go and try and live your dreams in that big, black void of the unknown, well, I'm looking out for you. I'm protecting you. I'm keeping you from that big bad void with all of the monsters that are hiding there for you. I really, really am the one that is behind you. I have your back. I have your best interest at heart. So again, please stay in this vibration, because otherwise, well, if I'm not with you, who knows what might happen to you that would even be scarier than I can even imagine.
Convince you that the end justifies the means.
This is a big one in your society, because negative beliefs will convince you again by turning around the idea that positive is negative and negative is positive, will get you to start acting in negative ways, thinking that it's actually going to result in a positive outcome, which is simply not possible. The end and the means are one. So negative behavior will become the norm, and negative beliefs will constantly reinforce that negative behavior as an actual means to a positive end, which will never happen. Because it will then keep you searching and keep you searching and keep you thinking, yes, this is all going to work out, even though you're going about things in a very negative way. It will only lead to the amplification of more negativity, which is exactly what the negative belief wants to happen.
Reinforce their reality through negative synchronicity.
Synchronicity abounds all the time. But of course, the idea is that when you're in a negative state, the kind of synchronous reflections you're going to get are also going to be reflective of that negativity. So this is what you call bad luck in your language, where people say, well, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. The idea, again, is that when you're in a negative state, of course, that's going to be reinforced by synchronicity, because synchronicity is just a representation of a mechanism that is neutral, and it doesn't have a mind of its own, and it doesn't really care what kind of energy you put into the machine. The machine can only churn out what kind of energy you put in. So negative beliefs know this, and they will use the negative synchronicity when you're in the negative state, when they've got you in that negative state, and the negative synchronicity crops up to say, see? Told you so. The world is a big bad place. Look at this. You just need to follow what I'm telling you and better things will happen. That's where they use that other idea that just keep doing these negative things and something good will happen. But negative synchronicity will keep piling up and piling up and piling up, and they will have to work harder and harder and harder and harder to convince you that this is still the road to take. This is why so many people on your planet find that when they finally get to the point where they are so sick and tired of being in that state, they will finally allow themselves to change. But the reason you get so sick and tired of being in that state is because you've been in that state for so long, because the negative belief was capable of convincing you to stay in that state much longer than you really, really had to. That's why you're so exhausted and finally allow yourself to change. This is one of the loopholes in the idea of the negative belief, is that it will exhaust you to the point where one way or another you will finally exit that state of being. But you can exit it positively or you can exit it negatively. Sometimes the negative exit you refer to as suicide.
Prevent you from seeing positive opportunities.
As we have often said, you cannot perceive what you are not the vibration of first. If you are of a certain vibration that is negative, you simply are incapable of imagining positive opportunities. They're just invisible to you. Just don't think that way from a negative state. But when you're in a positive state, then all the opportunities that could be positive will show up in the positive synchronicity. And you'll have the capability of imagining what they may be and even creating some opportunities on your own. But again, the negative belief will do its best to make sure that you stay in a state where you can't even imagine that there might be a positive opportunity. You just won't understand the language of positive reality by steeping yourself in the negative energy.
Prevent you from finding the core belief by getting you to focus on secondary ones.
This is a favorite trick, so to speak, of the deep core negative belief, is that it will surround itself with all sorts of shells and layers of other secondary and tertiary level beliefs, allowing you to think, well, if they're going to come looking, I'm going to make sure they find this and they find that. It's red herrings and decoys everywhere, so that you think, oh, I found the negative belief. Oh, goody, it's gone now. And you move on with your life and suddenly find that your behavior is the same and your feelings are the same. And you wonder, what the heck happened? I thought I let that go. Well, there is the negative belief deep down in its little lair going, hee hee hee. They haven't found me. And it will keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that until you finally achieve the level of willingness that is necessary for you to just break through all those different levels and really look for the core definition, which when you find it and let that go will allow the secondary and tertiary level negative beliefs to just collapse because now they have no more foundation.
Distract you from investigating your beliefs.
Oh, that's a big one too. Yes, yes, I am going to go about investigating those. Oh, shiny. Oh, what was I doing? Oh, yes, yes, I'm going to get to the bottom of these Oh, that looks like fun. The negative belief will do that too. Look at that. Oh, look at that. You've been wanting to do that for a while, right? I'm your pal. I'm your buddy. Let's go do that. That looks like much more fun than looking for me. It will do anything it can to prolong the process, in other words.
Convince you to believe they're not doing any of these things.
Exactly. As somebody has said, colloquially speaking, one of the greatest tricks of the devil is convincing you he doesn't exist. Yes? So the idea is that this is really what's happening, and that's what that phrase comes from, is that negative beliefs will also impart to you such a willing suspension of disbelief that you actually will not even see or be capable of imagining that such a belief even exists. You will think this is coming from the outside This is a true victim mentality now, where you think everything is against me. This is paranoia. This is saying the world is to blame. This is saying I am a victim and everything is happening to me in life instead of happening through me in life. This is where the negative belief really gets you to believe that there isn't something happening within your consciousness, that it's all real out there and it's all coming from out there, and there is no negative belief. This is just the way the world is. It's a cruel, mean place. Get over it.
Convince you to deny that negative beliefs exist within you.
Same thing.
Convince you to believe you're the exception to the ability to change.
Absolutely. This is, again, an amplification of the state of arrogance, where, oh yes, and the state of victimization, where, oh yes, I know you could probably change if you really wanted to. I know you could do it. Everyone can do it, but somehow I can't. I'm the exception to the rule. That's actually, even though it seems like a victim position, is actually a state of high arrogance, that you would think that out of all beings in creation, you're the only one who cannot change. That's calling attention to yourself in a very negative way, which amplifies the negative energy within you.
Convince you to feel comfortable with negativity.
Oh yes, if you live with it long enough and it has done its job to scare you that every other direction is going to be worse, then you will settle down into that couch and it will start to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat away at you very slowly over time until you find that you and the couch have fused into one thing. And now if you want to go and do something, now it's convinced you that you really can't even move, because now not only do you have the weight of your own self, but you have the weight of the couch. And now the couch has fused to the floor of the house. And now you really can't do anything about it, so you might as well just stay there and enjoy it. Enjoy wallowing in your misery. This is what happens when you call it wallowing in misery. You just give up, give over all your power, and this is just the way it is, and you just fade away.
Convince you to believe no positive tools will work.
This is also a big one, because again, the idea is that they paint all positive ideas in a negative light. And when you expose yourself, or even have the possibility or probability of being exposed to tools that could help you, they will really work hard to convince you that those things are just falderall. It's just wishful thinking. Those things never really work at all. Please don't even go that way. That's really just a fantasy. You're living in fantasy land. You understand?
Convince you to distort and view positive information as negative.
Again, a variation of the idea of positive beliefs, where again it won't even allow you to actually comprehend some of the information that you are receiving that could be helping you move in a positive direction. It will distort it, filter it, twist it in such a way that you will really see it as something other than what it is, and again not be capable of taking advantage of the positive information. It will make it seem discordant. Because you are in a negative state, out of alignment, out of phase with your true vibration, anytime the true vibration approaches you, it will get louder too and create such a cacophony of distortion. It will then make your ears bleed to listen to it, so you'll move away from that positive information. It will make it seem that you are so vibrationally incompatible with that it must be a bad thing, because you are wonderful and you are good, and anything coming to you that makes you feel this way must be bad. So please ignore it. Please run away from it as fast as you possibly can, back into my arms, where you are nice and safe and cozy forever.
And finally, convince you to justify keeping the negative belief.
When the negative belief has really done its job well and really convinced you that that's the safest place, anything and everything will be used as a justification to maintain it. Any negative feeling you have will be focused on so that you don't have to focus on the belief itself. Any negative thoughts will be focused on that you can justify the idea. You will look at your history and anything that might have happened in what you call the past that was negative to say, but look, this happened to me, so it will happen again. But look, I must be held back by habits and patterns that I was taught. But look, this is the way the world is, so who am I to say different? You will find any reason at all to justify all of these tools and tricks and keep the negative belief in charge of what it is you think, what it is you feel, what it is you say, and how it is you behave. You will now be working as the negative belief's agent on its behalf, and you will really be its minion doing its job along with it to continue to convince yourself that the negative belief is the best possible state of being for you. And then, in a sense, the negative belief can start to relax because it's convinced you that you have to do its job for it. You now work for it, and not the other way around. Fascinating, isn't it? All right. So, before we go on to the idea of the neutralizers, please understand that these things have been, as we have said, handed down and handed down and handed down. But that's not a reason why they should continue. This is just an idea. And you have projected these things, and the negative beliefs have projected themselves into all forms of archetypal iconography and imagery to make sure that they remain in the forefront of your consciousness and right in front of your face all the time. And that's okay, because polarity is going to be everywhere you look. But the key is recognizing that all of the presentations that the negative beliefs make are only that. They're just presentations, they're just symbols, they're just representations, and they don't have to contain any solidity, any validity in the sense of believing that they're true for you. They are valid as beliefs, but you don't have to prefer them, and you don't have to invalidate them. You just need to allow them to be neutral. Shall we go down the list quickly of the neutralizers?
Yes, we shall.
That being the first one that I just told you above and beyond the list, because this is the main principle behind the neutralizers, is to realize the illusion and the lies behind the negative beliefs. Because as we said in the beginning, the idea is that the negative beliefs have to work very hard to convince you that you're unworthy because you know that you are worthy. And therefore, this is all smoke and mirrors. And by demonstrating the idea of the transition from a simple recognition to a complex and quote-unquote scary archetypal presentation in your mythology, you see how the negative beliefs have to work to create illusions when all they really are just standing behind the curtain, pushing the levers, going, hope they believe this one. This is my best trick yet. I am Oz the great and powerful. You understand. And so, let's look behind the curtain.
Yes, and these are negativity neutralizers. The first being remembering that negative feelings are generated by negative beliefs.
When you understand that that's the succession, that you have to have the belief first in order to have any feeling at all, because you have to have a definition in order to know what you're feeling about, then as soon as you have a negative feeling or a feeling that's uncomfortable for you, own it. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to ignore it. Own it. You have to acknowledge that it's there because you can't change what you don't own. But realize that as soon as you have the feeling, you can use the feeling. Remember that the feeling has to come from a definition first. So once you feel the feeling, that can be your first aha. If I'm feeling this, there has to be a definition generating it. Let's find out what it is. What I have to believe is true in order to feel the way I do. And that can help you unlock from the fear and go into curiosity and discovery to find out what that negative belief actually is. And once you identify it, It will automatically appear illogical and nonsensical, and you realize that you simply bought into it somewhere along the way, your parents, your society, your friends, your schooling, and you will realize that it's baggage that doesn't belong to you, and you can drop it. Go ahead.
You can neutralize negative beliefs by remembering that negative beliefs are only beliefs and they're not actually true.
Everything is just a belief in terms of your physical reality experience. The only things that are absolutes are the 5 laws that we have often talked about. Everything else is just a combination of those laws and an experience of the idea of polarity projections from belief systems as a physical being, because that's what you're made of. You're really made of. Your physical mind is just made of belief systems. That's all it is. They're just filters that allow you to experience the idea of yourself as a projection into physical reality. But physical reality is just a dream. In reality, you are all right now still in spirit. You're just dreaming that you're not. That's it. You never leave spirit. It's your natural state. It's what you are. So you are now imposing upon your spirit, upon your consciousness, the dream that you are having a physical reality. And that's all it is. But you're still in spirit right now. So let's wake up and remember that.
Another neutralizer is remembering that beliefs can always be changed.
A belief inherently is changeable when you believe that it is. So this is the skeleton key that unlocks you from any belief, is no matter how hard a negative belief may work to convince you to buy into it, if you just give yourself an opportunity to always take a pause and remember that it is just a belief, then you will always know you always have the key to change it if you truly prefer to. That's the skeleton key that unlocks you from any belief, is just remembering that it is nothing but a belief.
Remembering that all situations are fundamentally neutral.
And again, notice how all of or most of these neutralizers have to do with just remembering these ideas. That's all. And again, remember that the negative belief is going to do its darndest to get you to forget, to get you to not realize that there are such concepts. Remember, we said it will paint these things as if it's something to not pay attention to. So in a fact, the idea of just remembering some of these ideas can, in many cases, be enough to neutralize them, just because you broke through the forgetfulness the negative belief was intending to impose upon your consciousness. Just remembering can eradicate many of these beliefs, just remembering these things. And that will put you back into a state of neutrality, which, as we have said, is actually slightly bent always in the positive direction, because neutrality is a state in which you are free to choose, and that's a positive state. So in a sense, you could say that creation is actually just slightly more positive than negative, because there is a middle state of neutrality that allows you more ease of choosing the positive. And if you just drift in neutrality, even if you just do that, the current of creation will eventually bend you in the positive direction if you do nothing else but just go with the flow. That's a powerful one, isn't it? All right.
Remember that your existence and your worth are more fundamental than any belief.
Beliefs are just the creation of the idea of the physical mind. Your existence is far more fundamental. That, in some senses, should be obvious. And if you exist, that means you have to be worthy, because creation doesn't make mistakes. And if you exist, then that means existence needs you to exist, or existence wouldn't be complete. So you are that worthy, because again, the things that existence didn't need don't exist. So your worth and your existence are far more fundamental than any belief. And if you just go back to that core remembrance, then the belief will be seen as a secondary level illusion and not a true fundamental truth or reality.
Remember that negative beliefs make positive beliefs easier to see by contrast.
You can use the idea of negativity in a positive way. That's basically what this means. So you're not invalidating the negative belief, but turning it back on itself and saying, well, thank you, negative belief, for being so dark, because by being so dark, you actually allow it to be much easier to see the little light in the distance, which, if things were brighter, I might not have noticed. So, in the vastness and empty void of space, a single tiny spark of light is much easier to see because of all the blackness. So you can use the negativity to your advantage and turn its trick around on itself by saying, thank you for showing me the contrast, because many times it's a lot easier for many of you to simply understand what it is you do prefer by being shown an example very clearly of what you don't prefer by contrast. Then you know what direction to go in more easily.
Another neutralizer is that you can remember that negative beliefs are your creation and that you're always in control, you're always empowered, and even if you're using your power to make it seem like you're out of control.
That's again the thing to understand about the nature of existence and your existence as well, is that there can be no such thing as an actual disconnection from Source. But Source supports you so unconditionally in your choices that you can choose to pretend that you are disconnected. But the paradox is the only way you can actually have an experience of disconnection is to use your connection to create it. So if you remember that you're always empowered, then you will realize and remember that the only way you could possibly have an experience of disempowerment is if you're using your power to create that experience of disempowerment. And once you remember that it's simply not actually possible to be disempowered, again, you will neutralize the negative belief's insistence on your lack of power.
Another neutralizer is if you remember that positive beliefs will never use negative reinforcement, but that negative beliefs will always use positive reinforcement because they are deceptive by design.
Exactly. So always pay attention when they are leading you down the so-called primrose path and painting a rosy picture of something that you know is actually negative, because they have to work very hard to make it seem positive in order for you to follow it. But you can recognize that they are being deceitful because that's their nature to be so in order to perpetuate themselves, because you know the truth about yourselves, and they have to lie to you to get you to buy into what they're saying by pretending that they know better, by pretending they have your best interests at heart, and then coloring things to make it look like that's the path to take, when really, if you just stood back and looked at what they were doing, you would realize that it's just a path of rocks and thorns that they're convincing you to step on.
Another thing that you can do is you can remember the yin-yang concept, that no matter how dark things may seem, you always have the ability to reach the light.
Within the idea of the polarity in existence, there is always an opportunity, just as in the yin-yang symbol, to recognize that on the dark side, there is always a spot of white. And on the dark side, there always is that, and on the white side, always a spot of dark. So that you know the doorways exist in both directions, and you can always choose. No matter how dark it may seem, you will always know there is a doorway to the light. Always. But at the same time knowing that no matter how light it seems, you always have the power to choose the dark. This again brings you back into balance, brings you back into the center point where you can neutralize everything and realize that all choices are just equally valid, and then choose what you prefer with a clear conscience and from a state of balance. So remember that symbol.
Another method is to remember to be okay with the process of discovering what your negative beliefs are so that you can let go of them.
Many people, again, are convinced by the negative belief that they should be absolutely perfectly spiritual beings by now. Why do these things keep happening to me? What's wrong with me? I should be far beyond this at this particular point. But you see, the process is the point. You will transition at some point from the idea of letting go of negative beliefs to something else. but it will always be a process. So be okay with process, because process is the point of having a physical life. Because you cannot change without the idea of process. In a timeless state, there's no change. Only by creating the illusion of space and time can you go through the idea of discovering yourself from a new point of view. So be happy with the process, love the process, be passionate about discovering through the process, because process is the equivalent of life. You're living a life that is by nature a process of discovery. That's what it's all about. The journey is the destination, the process is the point. So live in the process, live in the now with the process, and it will serve you in positive ways. Let it be okay to go through those processes. The difference will come in this way. At some point, when you are finally willing to investigate all the negative beliefs, bring them to conscious light, and let them go, the process of letting things go will continue. But the way the process then expresses itself is it changes from letting go of negative beliefs to letting go of things that are simply no longer relevant for you in life. They may be positive things, but eventually you will streamline yourself, streamline yourself, streamline yourself by letting go of even positive things that simply are no longer relevant for the being you now know and prefer yourself to be. So the process won't stop even when you let go of all the negative ideas. So please don't turn the process into another negative idea, because it isn't, or doesn't have to be.
Another neutralizer is remember that negative beliefs belong to someone else and you don't have to carry them.
Yes. As we said, things that are truly out of alignment with who you are don't belong to you. You most likely pick them up along the way. But they are baggage that belong to other people that you've simply been convinced that you have to carry. But because it belongs to other people, that's why it's so heavy. That's why it weighs you down. The beliefs that are true and in alignment for you weigh nothing. It feels effortless. You feel light as a feather. When you start to feel weighed down, that can be one of the clues you're carrying something that doesn't belong to you. So investigate it. Drop the baggage. As we have said, do not steal other people's beliefs and be a belief thief. You don't want to steal other people's beliefs. Drop them and move on and lighten your load. Remember that the first step to enlightenment is to lighten up on yourself and lighten your load.
Remember that you're never alone and you always have help.
You may always be capable of experiencing solitude in a positive way, but you are never, ever, 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 ever actually, truly alone. You cannot be, because you are connected to everything. You are everything, expressing itself as everything, expressing itself as every aspect of itself. And thus you are all the reflections, and they are you. You are never alone. You have help, you have guides, you have friends, you have family on many different levels, and connections more than you can imagine from this perspective. You can always create the experience of solitude, and that solitude will always be respected to give you the space you need to function as the individual that you are, but you are never, ever, ever alone. And the second that anyone knows that assistance is required, assistance is always given. You are constantly, in fact, being bombarded with all the assistance we, your guides, and many other beings and source can possibly give. If you feel that the assistance isn't there, it's not because it's not being given, it's because you are blocking the reception by negative beliefs and buying into them. So as soon as you let go, you will suddenly realize, and in fact almost be blinded with the assistance that is always flowing your way without let up of any kind. So tap into that river and let it flow through you, because it's always coming. It cannot stop.
Remember that you're always loved and supported, no matter what.
Again, this goes to your worthiness. If you were not worthy, you wouldn't exist. So if you exist, you're worthy. And the idea is, therefore, you have absolute right to all the energy, all the support, all the love, as you call it, of all that is, because that is the energy of existence itself. And if you are part of existence, then it is your nature to experience the ideas you translate in your reality as unconditional love and support. It's your nature that you're experiencing when you experience those energies. It's the nature of existence itself translating in physical terms that you call that feeling of unconditional love and unconditional support. It's your nature.
Remember to forgive yourself and others.
Forgiveness is exceedingly powerful as a tool. Here's exactly vibrationally why. Forgiveness is a state of being that can actually mitigate the effects of the consequences of a negative act. You have, many of you at least, heard of the idea that when you die, many people experience what is called life review. Yes? And in that life review experience, it has been reported that what happens, because there are no longer the same barriers between you and another, that you will suddenly start to experience in that life review not only the things that happened visually, but you will actually experience the consequences of anything you chose to do and the way in which others may have experienced them based on your intentions, as if you're experiencing the consequences from their point of view. You understand? So if you have in any way, shape, or form intentionally caused hurt or harm to someone, in the life review, you will feel exactly what they felt when you did that, as if you were them. Forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness from others, forgiveness to others is actually a vibrational state that will actually mitigate the effect of the consequence of a negatively intentioned act. So the more forgiveness you can create for yourselves, the more you can forgive others, the more you are evening the playing field, and the less need there is for you to experience the idea of the negative energy that was initially created by a negative act. It's as simple as that. It is a mitigation cancellation system. That's what forgiveness is as an energy. It's bringing everything back to zero.
Another neutralizing method is to remember that you can choose what you prefer without invalidating what you don't prefer.
The only reason you would choose to invalidate something you don't prefer is if you have a belief that it is somehow more powerful than you are at deciding what you prefer. Because if you have to invalidate it, then you're saying you have to have extra protection. You have to somehow shun it and push it away. But there's nowhere to push anything to. Imagine that because everything is actually here and now, that the walls of existence are right here. And if there's a big spring on the wall and you push against that spring, the only thing you're doing is building up energy in that spring by denying it and pushing it away. So at some point, that energy is going to build up so much, so powerfully, that it's going to pop back at you. It has no choice because it has nowhere to go. This is what invalidation does. But if you simply validate everything, then the springs just sit there. And you go, well, okay, there's this negative spring and there's this positive spring and they're just sitting there and I'm not going to give you undue energy. And I'm just going to choose what I prefer. This is what I prefer. That's it. There's no charge on it. This is simply a recognition of what I prefer. That's it. And then you act in that direction. And that's all there is to it. Invalidation charges the thing you don't prefer because it's a negative energy. So if you don't prefer a negative thing, why would you feed it more negative energy? By invalidating it. You're just feeding it, and when you feed something, it'll grow. Don't feed it.
Be willing to be honest with yourself about your beliefs.
Absolutely. In your investigation, do not succumb to the convincing of the negative belief that makes you go into denial that the negative beliefs are there. They're always going to be there for a while, And your excitement in following it will reveal to you any negative beliefs that may be remaining within your personality structure. And that's all right. Just discover them. Don't go into denial about it. If you go into the idea again that, well, I'm supposed to be this perfect spiritual being that has absolutely no negative beliefs, well, then that's a negative belief. Again, it's the negative belief convincing you that you're perfect so you don't have to look at things. But you are perfect anyway. You're perfect as you are. Whatever version of you are at the moment is absolutely a perfect version of what you are at the moment. In the next moment, you may be different, but you will just be a different, perfect version of that. So you're always already perfect, even though you will always constantly change.
Another important thing to remember is don't let fear stop your momentum. If you're going to be afraid anyway, then go ahead and push through it and do what you love doing regardless.
This is just a logical argument. If you're going to be afraid, why not be afraid while you're doing what you love instead of sitting around not doing anything and being afraid? It's as simple as that. You might as well, if you're going to be afraid, be doing something you love to do while you're being afraid. And as soon as you actually start moving in the direction of what you love to do, you will find that you'll be less afraid. Very simple self-canceling mechanism.
Yeah, and if you find that you are experiencing fear, push through the fear. Even though it'll get louder and stronger, that only means it's reaching its breaking point, and eventually it will dissolve.
As we said, negative beliefs have to work very hard to get your attention, to turn your face away from the truth that you're absolutely worthy. So as soon as you start moving in the positive direction, they're going to start yelling as loud as they can. They're going to start banging on drums. They're going to have a 76-piece orchestra trying to get your attention so that you will come back in that direction. So the louder it gets, the stronger the fear feels, should tell you you're really close to crossing the threshold and letting it go, or it wouldn't have to work so hard to get your attention.
And don't forget that if you're the creator of the negative belief, then you are more powerful than the negative belief.
You're the one that created it. No matter though it may convince you that it has power over you, it always knows that you are the creator of the negative belief. And of course, if you realize that, then the negative belief is neutralized. So it will do everything in its power to convince you that you are not as powerful as it is. But if you created it, you have to be more powerful than it is.
Remember, positive beliefs allow you to feel light and free. It's negative beliefs that make you feel tired and heavy.
And again, we come back to the idea of the loophole that while you can lighten your load as you go, if for some reason you are holding on and holding on and holding on and holding on and getting tireder and tireder, more exhausted, and wondering why you have absolutely no joie de vivre, then the idea can be used as a turnaround to recognize that eventually, if you maintain any degree of desire to go in the positive direction, that you will one day become so sick and tired of being sick and tired that you will finally let all of that negativity go. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait that long. But at least you know that someday, if you're that sick and tired, you might finally be willing to let go of the thing that's actually making you sick and tired.
And here's an interesting one. Drop what your ego wants.
Yes. Know the difference between what you prefer and what your ego is telling you you want. Because more often than not, what the ego wants is what the negative ego is attempting to convince you of that you need, and to distract you from what really would serve you, what would really be representative of what you need, what would really be representative of your joy. It will convince you that you must want this and you must want that in order to be happy. And again, all it's doing in many cases is leading you down a primrose path.
Let go of all of your assumptions and go to zero.
Yes, and we will continue because this will culminate in the final one.
Which is don't resist change, go with the flow.
And
Remember the famous quote,
pay attention.
it's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that just isn't so.
Assumptions. Negative beliefs will convince you that you know what you're talking about when you don't. So always allow yourself to know that many different kinds of statements that may sound like facts may only be assumptions that are reinforced by negative beliefs to convince you that you know what you're talking about and that you know better than what someone else may be attempting to tell you that could help you. So you will become the ultimate authority. I know it all. You can't tell me anything new. But there's the trap. It's not so much that you get into trouble with what you don't know. It's what you know that just isn't so, because you've been convinced that it's true and it may not be. So always look for the things that come out of your mouth and pay attention to whether they are just assumptions or true statements of your being. Because negative beliefs will make assumptions appear to be facts, and they're nothing again but smoke and mirrors. Now again, these are just a few of the ideas, both negative and positive. It is up to your own imagination to provide whatever may work for you. But the more you allow yourself to look at this list and study this list, the more it will rub off on you the way in which negative beliefs work. You will start to really see behind the curtain, understand the illusions and the tricks, and then start to catch them in the act. And then realize how empowered you are. And then you can move in the direction that you prefer.
What if having an expectation was the reason for the action was exciting to begin with, or adds to the overall excitement? For example, if I'm planning to release a new song, part of what builds the excitement is how many people listened to it or liked it. I'm having a hard time imagining how I would be able to act on my passion for its own sake. I would really appreciate any clarity on this.
Instead of focusing on the idea of the number of people, allow yourself to focus on the knowledge that the people who need it will receive it and receive benefit from it and joy from it. Don't focus so much on the number. Remember, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, as you people say. Therefore, get excited about the quality of what you are creating in its pure form, because you know that because it contains high vibrational quality, because it has been created from your joy, your imagination and creativity, it will reach who it needs to reach and allow them to also match that vibration and experience joy and inspiration in their lives too. So focus on the quality, not the quantity.
This person would like to know, how do I know when I have truly changed my belief? I'm working on self-worth, and I can say I'm worthy and even believe it, but my circumstances are still the same. I feel stuck and I don't know what to do about it.
Remember, it's not about circumstances that tell you you've changed. It's about whether you respond differently to the same circumstances that tell you that you've changed. It shouldn't matter whether the circumstances change. If your response to it has changed, you will still get a benefit from it by staying in the positive energy. This is why this is the fourth step of the formula and why it's so important to remain in a positive state no matter what happens. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference. So if you're expecting the outer reality to change because you say that you've changed, you are working it backwards. It doesn't matter if the outer reality changes, because the outer reality will have only the effect on you that is determined by the state of being you create. And the state of being you create is your response to that circumstance even if that circumstance remains the same and doesn't change. It's your response that needs to change, your energy that needs to change, your relationship to it that needs to change, and is what determines you have truly changed, not whether the outside changes or not.
Okay. And this person is interested in letting go of limiting beliefs. He says, or she says, I've been applying your principles recently and feel much better overall. I've noticed, however, that I still have limiting beliefs that I'm holding on to and want to explore them further to let go. This has been my focus for the past few months. Sometimes, though, answers don't come or the same limiting belief keeps resurfacing. How can I ensure I've successfully let go of a belief? What would be the sign that it's resolved?
The sign that it's resolved would be that the belief no longer makes any sense to hold on to, because you don't hold on to beliefs that don't make sense to do so. Again, this goes to what we have said about the motivational mechanism in humans. You only hold on to beliefs that you believe actually serve you. Even if you know intellectually that they don't, you must believe the alternative is worse, or you wouldn't hold on to the beliefs that you have. It must be that you view the belief that you're holding on to, even if you know it's not to your benefit, as being safer as a belief, more familiar as a belief, easier to deal with than the alternative should you decide to let it go and change your belief. So you have to find out what it is you're afraid would happen if you actually changed the belief. If you have a belief that says the alternative is worse, then you will still hold on to whatever it is you're holding on to that you know may not be serving you, but you believe serves you better than the alternative. So again, it takes self-investigation and transparency to understand why you're holding on to it, and it's usually because you believe that to let go of it or to go into another belief system, that something worse would happen than what you're already experiencing. So you just need more and deeper investigation of yourself as to what you are afraid would happen if you did in fact change your belief.
Okay. And this next set of questions is about the drones
Yes,
have been happening recently. So,
we will answer them all in one statement. Most of the drones that you have been seeing have to do with man-made devices, human-made devices that are surveilling, observing, and protecting against incursions from others with ill intent. Some of the drones may be extraterrestrial vehicles disguised as drones, but many of the drones, even the ones that are human made, military made, that are involved in this surveillance and observation, may still be being coordinated by extraterrestrial beings in terms of the information that is being gathered by the drones that is important for preventing others of ill intent from doing actions that would be detrimental to many of the societies on your planet. So it's a very complex and involved operation that involves not only your military, but also extraterrestrials on another level to help coordinate information that provides the protection necessary to prevent actions that have ill intent from happening in your world. And that is all we will say at this time.
okay. Well, that's helpful because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what is going on.
That is what is going on.
Okay, so moving along here to some additional questions. Here's an individual saying that they did the sacred circuits for 3 months, but they felt no positive changes. I tried talking with them, but received no communication back. I tried looking at them and taking their shapes, and I also tried looking at them while solely functioning on focusing on the energy. I was feeling something from each symbol, and I noticed that the symbol's energy lasted for a few hours or less, but then it wore off. What is the best way to use the sacred circuits to have impact fully on transformation?
It appears that you are only using them energetically and not connecting the changes that they make in your neurological circuitry to the idea of then performing physical actions in service to humanity after you utilize the circuits. That's what they're for. It's not just about sitting there and trying to feel changes in your energy. It's about using the circuits to rearrange the energy paths in your body, the neurological paths in your body, to make you more superconductive, hyperconductive, of higher frequency energies, and then to take the actions that are necessary to act on your passion in service to humanity. So it's a two-part process. It's not just about meditating on the circuits, because then you're not really flowing the energy that the circuits are helping you change within yourself in a way that is pragmatic and grounded in your physical reality. So it's not just about experiencing energy changes, it's about putting them into action.
Okay, thank you. How do we exist in the here and now, the present moment, and still be there for our future selves? For instance, how do we stay tuned into the present channel and still be able to make long-term, sometimes difficult choices that will benefit us later, but may be difficult in the now?
Again, the challenges that you face in the now determine what you will experience in the next now, which is what you call the future. Stay present with the challenge. Again, follow the formula in dealing with any challenge. It will allow you to set up the vibrational patterns that will allow you to experience the next present now in the way that will continue to move you forward in a beneficial way. That is what you do.
Okay, now this question is about free will. You teach us that we have some free will about how we will live our lives and explore our themes, and have given the analogy that it's like getting to choose how we walk down a hallway. But some other teachings say, well, really, all of this is just one non dual thing happening, and there's not even any self or doer to choose anything, and that free will is an illusion. Can you help reconcile this?
You have free will as a soul. You have free will as a physical entity. On a certain level, you could say that it is a non-dual experience, but on the physical level, that is not the case. Because you have given yourself the opportunity to have 2 points of view, that of the soul or the higher mind, that of the physical personality, you then have the opportunity to express different forms, different expressions of free will. The free will of the soul that chose the life path, the free will of the physical personality that determines how you will live that life path. So the idea that it is an illusion is true only in the sense that the idea of an illusion is simply another way of saying it's a projection that gives you an opportunity to have a certain kind of an experience. Many people use the word illusion in the sense that for some reason, just because something is an illusion, that it has no meaningful content, that it means nothing. This is not the case. That is one definition of an illusion in a certain context, but it's not the way we're using the word at all. The idea that your physical reality is an illusion doesn't mean it doesn't have the meaning that you give it, and doesn't mean it isn't a worthwhile experience that helps you learn lessons and helps you grow. It simply means it's a technique of consciousness projection that gives you a scenario in which you can learn those lessons and experience that growth and those processes that lead to it. So please do not misunderstand that when we use the term illusion, that doesn't mean it's worthless. That doesn't mean it's negative. That doesn't mean it doesn't serve a function. That's not the way in which we're using the word illusion.
Thank you. This question is, has everything there is already been created? So how has everything there is already been created in all dimensions, and we are just experiencing it over and over again? But since we make ourselves forget, it feels like we're playing a new game for the first time? Or
In a
is
sense,
all that isness still constantly expanding?
as we have explained, in a sense that is so. But the idea is that the structure, yes, already exists, all of it. It's your relationship to it, your experience of it, and your perspective of it that expands and allows creation to grow. So it's both. The structure already exists and is infinite, but there are certain portions of it that are relevant for your life path, and your relationship, your perspective, and your experience of that structure relative to your life path is what allows you to discover a new perspective of yourself and to grow. It's the way that all that is has of experiencing itself in all the ways that it can. So it already exists as a structure, but it doesn't necessarily already experience itself in all the ways that it can. That never ends, because it's all based on how you decide to experience your relationship to that structure, your experience of that structure, your perspective of that structure that continues to allow all that is to experience new perspectives of itself, new awareness of itself, new expansions of itself within the structure that never changes.
Quite amazing.
Yes.
This individual is asking a question about weight. You've said that our soul comes to Earth to have a particular set of experiences. For instance, it seems to me that my soul wanted to experience being overweight and unhealthy. Now, my human self disagrees with that and really wants to be healthy. Who wins here, the soul or the human body? Is it possible that the soul's desire experience is so strong that the human body can't change it or move to a timeline where the human's preferred experience, regardless of how many permission slips the human uses?
Usually, when the soul determines a particular kind of experience as a starting point, that usually allows the physical being to use that in order to create a transformational experience to go in a different direction. So the idea may be that there is resistance within your belief system that prevents you from transforming this in order to lose the weight that the soul is giving you as a starting point to have a challenge to face and overcome. It is relatively rare that the soul would choose something in that context, though not impossible, that is impossible to change. And if that is the case, then there is purpose to it that teaches other people some different kind of lesson relevant and relative to their interactions and relationship with you who is unable to lose that weight. This is very rare, but the idea is that it's not impossible, that the weight needs to be maintained in order to teach other people a lesson in terms of how they relate to people who have that kind of weight. However, it doesn't mean that you cannot change the circumstance if you get in touch with the idea of what that symbol that the soul has chosen represents and what lessons can be learned by others by maintaining it, then you may be able to transform it and yet still create a situation that allows people to change the way in which they relate to people who do have the excessive weight by forming some kind of an organization that will allow people to learn to look at people like that in a different way, to have compassion and empathy for the challenges that they're facing, and to perhaps help them learn different ways in which they can transform that challenge. So the idea can be used in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean you can't transform it, but it may mean you have to figure out a way to still help people understand the same lesson that maintaining the weight would teach them, if it is for the purpose of other people learning lessons from a person who has the excessive weight. So you can lose the weight if you can still figure out a way to help people learn the same lesson when you don't have the weight.
In continuation with that idea, it appears that being of service is some of the highest vibrational states one can be in.
Yes.
And the idea that humans as personalities prefer to experience positive, fun, exciting experiences of reality. And yet, as part of their soul contract, they may have come in with a willingness to experience great suffering in order to assist others. How do we
Yes.
reconcile those two perspectives?
Because the idea is that what you call suffering can be looked at in a different way, where it can be transformed simply into the energy of the lessons that others need to learn, so that the person experiencing that particular choice of the soul doesn't actually have to experience it as suffering, even though others may perceive it as such. So this requires a great advancement of the energy of that person and the awareness of that consciousness to learn how to still give off the vibration of the lesson that others may need to learn through perceiving them as suffering while they themselves do not suffer.
And perhaps an example of that would be what happened with Christopher Reeve when
Yes,
he portrayed being Superman and
yes,
then had that experience that changed his entire existence as a
yes,
personality.
yes, that can be some of it. So when something like that gets to a point where it seems inevitable and it's unlikely to change, then it can be seen perhaps as a lesson for others to learn how to relate to it in ways that he may have demonstrated that allow him to overcome what most people would consider to be the limitations of that physical experience.
So it takes a lot of vibrational uplifting in order to really understand these ideas.
It takes the advancement of the energy of that personality to more closely match the frequency of the soul itself. Yes.
Wow. And I guess the animals kind of demonstrate that because if they come from the angelic realm and they're willing to experience what we perceive they experience here on Earth,
Yes,
that would be a prime example of what you're speaking of.
absolutely, because they allow people to become more sensitive to the idea of what appears to be their suffering, so as to change things in terms of your relationship to the idea of animals, so that you can be more supportive, more loving, and more kind to them, at the same time learning how to do that for yourselves. They are great teachers.
Yes. Um, if we are creating our own reality experience, and if things in our world, including you and other spiritual teachers, are part of the illusion of physical reality, how can we trust you or any teachings in the physical world to be accurate and not just more illusions or reflections of our own beliefs or something like that?
This is what we said before. Many people on your planet are using the word illusion as if it has absolutely no value, as if it is simply nothingness, as if it is a trick, as if it is a deception. That's not the way we're using the word illusion. The way we use the word illusion is simply a description of the idea that what you're experiencing as a physical reality is a projection of your consciousness. Let me give you a simple example. When you go and look at a movie, in a sense, the movie is an illusion. You're not actually looking at people in real life, so to speak. You're looking at something that is a projection onto a screen. Yet the story has great value, can even be very emotionally moving to you, can help teach you lessons. So you could say, well, the movie is an illusion, but it has value, it has worth in the experience that you are taken through by watching that movie, by relating to the characters in the movie. Again, another form of story. So the idea is not to invalidate the concept of the word illusion in the context that we are using it. It's just a way of describing that you're using a particular device to experience the meaning you're giving into life, the experience of the lessons you need to learn from life, and the processes that you need to experience for your soul's growth. So it's up to you to determine through your synchronicity that what you've attracted yourself to in this experience, whether you are understanding it to be an illusion or not, is simply your way of reflecting to yourself what you need to know to determine what's true and what's not true for you as a being. So please do not devalue the concept of the illusion. It's nothing more than the device you're using, like a movie, to tell yourself a story that helps you learn lessons and helps you grow and helps you understand who you are relative to the big picture in life.
Hello, Bashar.
And are you good day?
How you doing?
Perfect, and you?
Good.
Oh, all right.
Thanks for asking.
All right. You are welcome.
Do you have any books to be published soon? Like any agreement between you and Daryl to...
There are already a few, and the channel and those involved in disseminating the information are working on plans to publish other books, but you can talk to them about that.
All right.
Since I am not part of the publishing company.
All right, I'll do that.
All right.
Other question is, I know that our bodies are made of energy. I understand that.
Yes.
So any ailments or any diseases we have, does it have to do with any energy blocks in our physical bodies?
It can. Again, the idea is that you have formed a general consensus reality and agreed that certain things shall be generally held as true. A lot of these general consensus truths have to do with how physical reality works. A lot of it has to do, therefore, with the idea of chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, blockages can occur by absorbing into your bodies the idea that you have labeled as toxins. And if you have toxins in your body, which all of you do, then that can, because of the consensus reality of how chemistry functions, actually block the cellular structures in your body from absorbing the appropriate nutrients to allow your body to rapidly balance and heal itself. Therefore, this is why we strongly urge individuals who are attempting to make themselves more receptive to synchronicity and higher energies to thoroughly detoxify their bodies on a relatively regular basis, to get the toxins out and put the proper nutrients in to allow the body to operate on the neurochemical electrical level that it was intended to operate on so that it can function in a balanced state.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. Other question is, it has to do with, you were talking in your book about the properties of an object.
Yes.
And by changing them, you could change the object itself.
Yes.
And you could do time travel and everything.
Yes.
So can we, as third-dimensional beings, become the frequencies of the places we want to go to and visit? For example, let's say Andromeda or
Yes.
or Mars or anything.
However, you cannot do that as third-dimensional beings. However, you can do it as fourth-dimensional beings.
All right. So
Remember that you actually exist in the fourth dimension. We know that a lot of terminology on your planet gets confused on this issue. Third density, fourth density, third dimension, fourth dimension. Physically speaking, mechanically speaking, mathematically speaking, you're actually in 4 dimensions, 3 of space, 1 of time.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, by accelerating the idea of yourself as a fourth dimensional being and raising the vibration so that you're coming closer to fifth dimensionality, you can thus recognize that location is simply one of the variables of the definition of an object, and you can transport yourself to various places even as we do.
Mm-hmm. So for the time being, then we're just gonna do detox and everything to be allowing the higher frequencies.
It will be a beginning. We will see if you can detox your way to Andromeda.
All right.
There may be other belief systems also involved in that process that may require some changing.
All right. It will happen in time, right?
It can.
All right. All right. I've been following my excitement, especially recently,
Oh, all right. Thank you.
and so I've been already passing through two different fields, which is business field and medical field.
All right.
And the second is more exciting than the first, but still not completely.
All right.
So I've
Now
been
remember, first of all, before you continue, if I may,
yes.
when we talk about the idea of doing something that excites you, we are also talking about doing it in the most exciting way that you can. Sometimes individuals may think a certain thing doesn't excite them, but that may be only because they're not doing it in as exciting a way as they could be doing it. Sometimes you also can make the decision that certain things are not representative of your excitement, but you have to have the ability to make the discernment as to which is which. And the first thing to always check is simply that you may be making something seem not exciting because of your belief systems about it, when in fact you could actually be going about it in a more exciting way and reclaiming the excitement that is there. So as long as you check that first, then you can make a decision more easily as to whether or not the thing itself is truly representative of your excitement or not.
All right. So you answered my question, which is I am thinking now to be in the nonprofit field.
Oh, all right.
And
why is that exciting for you?
Because I feel it fits my personality a lot.
Oh, right.
I feel I have qualities that match this field more than others, and I also can able to help people who need help.
All right, and this is exciting for you,
It
yes?
is exciting for me, yes.
All right, and so what actions will you take in that direction?
I've been already researching on taking a degree in school again the third time.
All right.
But since I've been planning to simplify my life also,
Yes.
if I do that, I'm gonna have to take more debt and everything.
Maybe, maybe not. Why do you assume that that's the case? Because that's the way it's always been?
In a way, yes.
Well, what does the way it's always been have to do with the way it can be?
I got your point.
Well, thank you. Are you going to act on it?
I am going to act on it.
All right.
Do you have any comment or advice or guidance towards how I'm going to act on it?
Well, I sort of just gave you some. The idea is to start relaxing your definitions of what seems to work for everyone else and recognize that you are a unique reality and that you can create the definitions within yourself that will work for you, and you don't have to do it the way someone else has done it. At the same time, as we said before to another individual, honor the belief systems that you do hold on to that you know you're not willing to let go of. If you truly believe that you need to do it a certain way, even though it may not be fully representative of your highest joy, but you feel you can't let go of that belief, then I would not let it go, because you may then throw yourself off a cliff and not be able to recover. The idea is to always honor the belief system and change them at whatever pace you are comfortable with changing them, based on the degree to which you're willing to believe that the new belief can actually support you. But I can guarantee you that any new belief you come up with that actually is believed by you to be capable of supporting you in whatever way you need to be supported will work, if you believe that it will, without the expectation that it must do so in a certain way. Again, we will be discussing this in more detail tomorrow when we discuss the idea of the relationship between physical mind and higher mind and how they can work more smoothly together. All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Bashar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do I do when I don't know what my highest excitement is? Sometimes it feels like following my highest excitement is not leading me to the synchronicity and effortlessness I would expect, which leads me to not trusting my excitement and feeling confused. Other times, I just simply am not sure about what my highest excitement is, and I'm left confused, overwhelmed, and lost. Other times, when I think I'm clear on what excites me the most, I find moving towards that direction is met with obstacles, resistance, struggle, and general effort. I would love some guidance on what to do when you are feeling like you don't really know what excites you, what is your highest excitement, and or when it seems like following your highest excitement is met with more struggle and obstacles. Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, again, we remind you that acting on your excitement does not have to be acting on huge things like big projects or careers. Everyday things, all you have to do is simply pick the one that has a little bit more attractiveness, curiosity, excitement, or passion connected to it. It can be as simple as taking a walk or reading a book. Just decide what seems more attractive at that moment and keep choosing things that have more attraction than any other ordinary daily thing. And it will build and it will grow. But it also sounds like you're confusing the idea that there is red light and green light synchronicity, because sometimes even things that do represent your excitement, synchronicity is telling you this isn't the time to act on it, and so it will present an inability to do so. But the other obstacles that may come up may simply be the idea of how it is you're willing to face challenges. Because remember, the reflective mirror in the formula is one of the things that brings to your attention any belief systems you may be holding on to that are out of alignment with your excitement, but you have to face them. You can't just assume that following your passion means you will never have to look at the ideas that are out of alignment with your passion in your belief system. That's the exact thing you're supposed to be doing, is revealing all the beliefs within you that are negative, fear-based, or out of alignment, and dealing with them and finding out why you're holding on to them. So part of your excitement is to discover the things within you that are not your excitement, that seem like challenges. They don't have to be experienced as obstacles, but they will come as challenges, but you have to stay in a positive state, which is also part of the formula, in order to get a benefit of how you approach them to get and extract an advantage out of that experience. So even if something manifests that you objectively don't prefer, by staying in the positive state, you will still be able to get a beneficial effect out of the way that you look at it and the way you examine why it's there and why you may be holding on to a belief system that doesn't serve you. So you have to let go of all of these definitions of what you expect to happen, what you think is supposed to happen, and just deal with what's happening in the moment from a positive vibrational position in life, so you can get a benefit out of all of it, and keep it simple when we think of the idea of acting on your passion, instead of assuming it has to be some grand adventure. It can be everyday things. For example, the fact that you asked this question obviously was one of the more exciting choices that you decided was, at that time, the most exciting choice for you to do. So when this conversation is over, all you have to do is look around for whatever obvious things exist for you to act on. Take a walk, read a book, talk to a friend, eat a meal, and just keep picking the ones that are a little bit more exciting than anything else, that you have more ability to act on than anything else, and just keep doing that. It will lead to other things. We understand this is a very condensed, very rapid, very simplistic answer, but without actually engaging with you much more deeply in a private or personal conversation, this is what we can give you at this time to help you understand the whole process of how synchronicity works. When it's green light synchronicity, it allows you the ability to act on things. When it's red light synchronicity, it says this may be representative of your passion, but this is not the step to take right now. So look around for something else that you need to do, rather than feeling like you're banging your head against an obstacle. Don't just stay there and try to force your way through it. Red light synchronicity may be saying this is not the step to take right now. Look for something you are able to act on.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
I'm seeing your messages and videos for some time now. I'm so excited to have this meeting with you.
We have deep appreciation for the co-creation of this interaction with you as well.
I would hope if you could please help me understand a little more about the idea of physical experience related to the concept of being a projection of this consciousness.
Yes, well, we sort of just described all of that in the monologue.
Yes.
So the idea, again, is that there are vibrations, frequencies of energy within the soul, frequencies of light, that cause patterns
within the soul. Those patterns are focused by the soul in a way that projects those patterns into a kind of condensed focus point within the center of the soul, so to speak. And that projection of those patterns, that condensation of those energy patterns, creates a focal point in the soul that you call your physical personality. So it's projected that way. And because it is projected by those vibrations, those frequencies, then the physical personality perceives the idea of a reality around itself, which is made up of those frequencies. In a sense, it's almost like the physical personality seed or crystal at the center of the soul is seeing its reality projected on the inside surface of the sphere of the soul, as if that is the theater, that is the screen, 360 degrees in all direction, upon which the crystalline seed projects the idea of its consciousness, of its reality outside of itself, because what it's actually seeing is the, so to speak, inside of the sphere of the soul that it is. And that's where its holographic projection plays out, seemingly around itself, because the physical personality is concentrated at the center of the sphere that is the soul. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
It makes sense, yes. But the question is about, I am perceiving this reality in, are you perceiving my reality? You are perceiving your reality?
Yes.
It's
But we are agreeing to some degree to create something similar enough that we can talk about things as if we are sharing the same reality, even though we are creating our own reality. We're creating our own version of reality based on our connection and communications with each other, with everyone, to create a reality that is similar enough to the reality you're creating so that we can create what appears to be a shared reality, even though it is actually different realities.
the experience is everything in the same moment.
Yes. But you only
Yeah.
experience what you're focused on.
Yes.
So there are many aspects of what we are creating that are not visible yet, or may never be visible, because you may not need to create your version of that in order to experience it, because it may not be relevant to do so. But what you call the idea of the future are simply elements of the realities that we are creating with each other that are not visible yet, but they are there. So they become visible when it is relevant for them to become visible, because that's what you're now focused on. And from your linear space-time perspective, you call that becoming visible part the future.
Yes.
And the part that now goes invisible but is still there, you call the past. But all of it's there. It's just that it's different about what part of it becomes visible to you at any given moment in the present.
So what I experience now with you,
Yes.
from my point of view, my perspective, it's a projection
Yes.
of my consciousness. You are perceiving the same, but in your point of view.
I am perceiving something similar enough that we think it's the same. Yes.
Okay. That's one of my questions.
Yes, it's very similar to what you're experiencing electronically now in this particular exchange. In other words, you know that you're not actually seeing the physical body of the channel. You're seeing an image that has been electronically converted into images and sound that then open up on your computer so that you can see a representation of the channel. You're not actually seeing the channel's body directly, but you're interacting with it in a way that lets you know that there is such a being as the channel who is channeling a being like us, but you're not actually seeing the channel's body directly. You're seeing a projection. So it's similar to that idea.
That's actually the same feeling and like information. It's flowing through me. The same thing that I was feeling, it's what you just said. So
Yes.
it makes perfect sense. So thank you so much.
Yes, you are so welcome.
Is there a difference between an angelic or a spirit guide or an extraterrestrial
Well, yes.
being?
Yes. Although many of us have similar qualities, and so sometimes it can be challenging to tell us apart. Because, as I said, we have many of the qualities of spirit, and so vibrationally, you may still think you're speaking to a spirit, even if you're speaking to an extraterrestrial, or vice versa. You may be speaking to an extraterrestrial that you think is a spirit. You may be talking to a spirit that you think is an extraterrestrial, because sometimes it's challenging to tell us apart. Nevertheless, yes, there is a difference between the idea of an angelic being that has never been physical, a spirit guide which may have been physical in its experience, or members of your soul family that may choose to have been physical and taking turns playing different parts for you in different lives, so to speak. So spirit guides can also be someone who has been part of your soul family or doesn't have to be. It can be someone who, in a sense, is being trained as a spirit guide, and based on their level of skill and their particular choices of what they would like to do, they may be, so to speak, assigned to different people to help them grow as a spirit guide, to learn how to communicate and help people who have chosen to have physical experiences. So, yes, there are differences in the way that the beings may experience themselves in different dimensions and different realms, but ultimately they can sort of function in a similar way.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I don't know if now I'm allowed to ask a last question.
Well, you just asked a question, so I suppose you can ask another one.
It's difficult to me to imagine extraterrestrials since I was a child, specifically the what we call here the Greys.
Yes, well, they're not truly extraterrestrials in the classic sense. They are mutated humans from a parallel version of Earth.
Yes, this idea or concept, although I found it fascinating, and it really starts piquing the curiosity of my experience, but it's also terrifying to me. I
Why?
can understand why.
Well, probably because you've had those experiences, you've had those encounters, and as we have explained, the idea of beings that are operating on a different frequency, whether it's higher or simply representative of a different reality, can feel to your physical mind something similar to the idea of the spirit realm vibration, and to the physical mind, when it's exposed to a vibration of another dimension, another reality, or a spirit realm, may react to that frequency as if it is dying, because that's what that frequency represents to the physical mind. And so the limbic brain will react as a fight or flight survival mode suddenly, because being exposed to that energy may make it feel like it's about to die, even though it may not actually be about to die. It may feel like it's about to die by being exposed to that energy, and that's where the fear reaction comes up. It's a survival mode reaction of the limbic system in the physical mind.
Thank you so much.
Yes, there is nothing to be afraid of, but we understand that your body may react that way.
Yes, that concept also makes very, very perfect sense to me.
Yes.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Well, thank you very much. Aveo.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Bashar. I just watched an excellent lecture of yours about letting things in and letting go of the things that are not meant for us. I'm just wondering, regarding things that are not meant for us, why do we want them so badly? Such as the wrong person in a relationship. Just, and asking to let go of the desire so much and it just not going away. Can you help me understand why we so badly are drawn to things that are actually not a good match for us, or not a match with our frequency and vibration? Thank you so much.
They're in your life for a reason, but not necessarily the reasons you think. And it's the insistence and expectation in your belief system about why you think those people should be in your life that's getting in the way, instead of allowing them to be there for the reasons that actually serve you. Because there are no accidents, and they're in your life for a reason, but they're in your life to teach you lessons. And one of the lessons is to not impose a societal assumption or structure on what a relationship is just because of the strength of the attraction. It's about the idea of what are you learning from that relationship that allows you to become more of who you are and choose the things that you really prefer vibrationally in your life, instead of just insisting that this thing that has been attracted is supposed to serve a certain purpose, instead of just simply learning the lesson that it may be showing you that you need to let it go in order to attract something else that would actually be more relevant for you. So it all serves a purpose, but the question is, are you learning the lessons from what that relationship is showing you, or are you continuing to insist that it should be something that it's not?
Ilya Ovna Bashar.
Good day, good day.
Thank you for being the loving reflection that you are, by the way.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
I recently came to have some validation that I have a connection to the hybrid program,
All right.
and I've made agreements with certain mantis beings. There was a symbol that came through about phoning home, and I was hoping you could add some light to this.
Phoning home.
Yes.
All right. Well, first and foremost, when you are dealing with the mantis beings, with the grays, with the hybridization program, you are usually experiencing a shift in your energy vibration that is closer to the idea of spirit. And spirit represents your true home. So it could simply be your interpretation of realizing that you were very close to home, vibrationally speaking, anytime you had any of those encounters.
Okay. Did I make a agreement to do any channeling for one of these beings?
Do you mean with one of those beings, channeling one of them?
Yes.
It is a probability that you can pursue if you wish.
Could you give me a name or permission slip to follow that pathway?
Well, are you first of all talking about being excited about vocal channeling or automatic writing or doing some kind of readings for people or divination systems? What style of channeling? Because remember, anyone that is doing what they love to do is in the channeling state. They can decide how they wish to express it. That's up to them. So what form of channeling are you most passionate about exploring?
I think I'm still trying to decide that, but right now I'm leaning towards the vocal side.
All right. Well, are you willing to gather people around you who are asking questions so that they can pull the information through you?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, then we would suggest that you do that. But you have to get out of your own way. You have to not care what comes through. It has to be all right if you get nothing at all. You can't be worried about looking strange or silly. You have to allow the information to come through by having people ask questions that pulls the information through you into them, so that you can just be the conduit and the vessel, and you don't have to think about what you're getting. So it's a relaxed state of just allowance of whatever happens to happen, knowing that at that moment, even though you will get better with practice, that whatever happens in the moment is what needs to happen to give you the opportunity to practice and to feel out how the information comes through you and what your particular style is all about. So if you're willing to start that way, then gather some people who are willing to help you practice by asking questions that they would really like to know the answers to, and see what happens.
Okay.
All right?
So further on that, during the same time when I got the symbol, I also got information about following patterns of cubes. And you mentioned something about how a cube symbolically is kind of grounding into physical reality. Is there any
Yes.
information you have about how that might connect to block DNA?
How it might connect to block DNA?
Yes.
Why do you think that the cubes block DNA?
Not block as in do not allow to proceed forward, but block is in term of a cube as a shape, I guess.
All right. Well, it's simply, again, symbolic of the idea of physical reality in a grounded sense. That's why people instinctively refer to your planet as the four corners of the world. They think of it in a cubic form because that represents the idea of a very solid, stable, grounded shape. It's symbolic in that sense of a full experience in physical reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Separate question. So I've recently come across some information about uh, Tigetans. Is there anything you can add to the conversation about that at this time?
We are not allowed to discuss that at this time through this particular terminal.
Okay. Separate question then. So nature of physics. So when we transition and our universe essentially turns into spirit and less crystallized in physical reality, what happens to that physical reality that was our universe?
It remains within your soul. It remains within the oversoul. It becomes information that allows the soul to grow and make decisions about what it would like to do next. It's rendered into information, basically.
Okay. So concepts such as life insurance is useful for those who have perception agreements with us who also agree to that. But in terms of our physical reality, that's becomes information.
Yes, it all turns into information that the soul can use to decide what lessons to have learned from it, from the experience, how it all factors into what the soul will decide to do next for its personal growth.
Okay. If because we are shifting realities, one of the things I wish to do is honor all the life that I encounter. So when I'm in a situation for like weeding a garden,
Yes.
I don't want to harm those second density life forms, but I recognize that I shift to an earth where they're already different, but still I express the action of, well, I caused harm in the sense of my continuity. Can you help me address that perspective?
Well, you must understand the idea that in nature, certain things sometimes do go through a cycle where they do disintegrate in order to reform. So if you do it out of respect, out of love, and fall into a natural flow of your relationship and your connection to nature, then you will find ways to do that that actually are in keeping and in alignment with the natural cycles of nature for things to be apparently destroyed so they can be recreated. It's what you simply refer to as the cycle of physical reality, the cycle of life.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
All right.
And then I guess lastly, is there any other information that is open to coming through at this time?
When you start practicing the idea of channeling, make sure you allow yourself to adapt and to change in whatever way, shape, or form it seems natural for you to do so. Do not become rigid in the way that you think it has to present itself. You may at first start with your own higher mind, bringing that through so you can gain familiarity with what that feels like. And then you may start being aware of connections that you may have to other beings, like the mantis, where you then can, with further practice, bring through information from beings on that level as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Bashar. Ilya Ame.
You're welcome. Aveo.